Hi and welcome to tonight's Facebook Live on how to shatter matter. It's an interesting topic, and it's a topic that has certainly caused confusion, uncertainty and a whole heap of questions, which is really good because it means that we can have good discussion. Sonia, Haresh, Sarupa, thank you for joining. Hi Tracy. Hi Anita. I'm going to wait a few minutes because a few people said they wanted to start with this. Hi Amanda. Yumiko, nice of you to join us from Japan. So, shattering matter seems to have triggered a few questions and uncertainties and created quite a bit of confusion around how that affects being spiritual and how that affects us in the real world. Hi Glynis, hi Karen. Most of you know who I am, but for those of you that don't, my name's Helen Barton and I'm the channel for John the Beloved. And he gives talks each month. And this last month, his talk was about how to shatter matter. So those of you who've joined us so far tonight already receive his talks and know exactly what he's talking about. Hi Karen, Clara, Orla, good to have you here. Shattering matter is not about being uncaring or so detached that you appear to have no feelings. It's not about that at all. It's about not allowing what occurs at a personality level to matter so much that your soul can't fulfill its purpose and you don't walk your path. That's probably the simplest way to describe it. It's where we live our lives following the promptings of our guidance, our soul, our higher self, spirit, whatever you want to call it. Following that prompting that comes and not attaching to how well we do it, how right we do it, how imperfectly we do it. Hi Pia, nice of you to be here. It's about saying, I'm a spiritual being in a physical body. My role is to transcend matter, to not allow the physical to have so much power over me that my soul and its voice is not heard. So yes, it's about not allowing things to matter, and equally it's about knowing that certain things do matter. As John said, one of the first things that he used as an example is, it matters that we breathe. Yes, it does. However, we do it automatically. We don't think about it. We don't worry where our next breath is coming from. We don't check to see if we're breathing into the correct part of our body, whether our breathing is so many breaths in a minute. We don't think about it. We don't worry about it unless we're sick and our breathing is challenged. It's something that we accept that is important that we do, but we don't focus on it to see if we're getting it right or wrong. We get on with it and we allow our breathing to take care of itself. So I hope that clarifies a little bit. I've had, as I say, quite a few questions. So I'm going to start working through them. If any of you have got any questions you want to ask as I do so, please ask a question and I'll try and incorporate it in wherever we happen to be at the moment. So Clara asked, are letting go and detachment ways of shattering matter? Yes and no. That's a great answer, isn't it? It doesn't tell you anything. If we've had an issue, if something has been really important to us And that doesn't have to be a negative, it can be a positive. If something's really important to us and we have understood its importance and accepted and integrated it, then in letting go, we shatter the fact that it did matter so much that it took our attention and our focus. If we say, however, I'm just going to let that go, I'm not going to think about it anymore, and we haven't resolved whatever it is that we had been attached to, letting go isn't going to solve anything. And actually leads into a question that Anita asked, which I'd like to bring in at this point. What she said is, when one shatters some matter, is it a matter, pun intended, of it coming around 3 times? It can. We can let go of something, feel we've resolved it, and it'll come back again, and it'll come back again. I had blood clots in my lungs when our son was born. It mattered. I was very ill. I went through the tunnel and I got rejected. Some of you know that. I thought I'd understood what was the situation and resolved it. Hi Caroline, nice of you to join us. However, it occurred again some 15 years later, not 15 minutes later. It came back. This time I did some past life and I saw much deeper. And I thought I'd resolved it. 15 years later again, so it's no coincidence, that's a Saturn cycle. 15 years later again, I had exactly the same situation. And what I finally understood was, at the first event, I just needed to get through it physically. I thought I'd understood what it was at a physical level and I let it go. The second time round, it showed me that there was an issue within me at a value level that I'd carried for a long time, that I'd attached to as defining who I am, and it limited, it didn't define. So I released it. But the third time it came round, what I realised was I judged the fact that those other 2 situations had occurred and I hadn't fixed it. Well, of course, if you fix it, you know you haven't resolved anything, you've just fixed it. So sometimes it needs to come back more than once to help us to see that we may have understood and integrated, but we haven't gone deep enough to the real issue. And until we get to the heart of the situation, it will keep repeating until we do. If we make it matter so much to solve it that it puts everything else in the background, then we're never going to resolve, because it matters too much at a personality level and we're missing the gift of the soul speaking within it. So I hope that clarifies Clara and Anita. Haresh asked, how to shatter matter every day? Is it something that happens piece by piece? I'll come to your question in a moment, Srupa. How to shatter matter every day? Is it something that happens piece by piece? Well, first of all, if you're focused on shattering matter every day, then it matters, which means you've attached. Don't. We will have the opportunity to shatter as and when we are ready, and our soul tells us that we're ready by bringing a situation up for us to look at and to resolve. If something's not happening, then at that point we're in an integration phase, or we're asleep, but usually it's because we're in an integration phase, and there's nothing to do yet until we've integrated. You know, shattering matter isn't like cleaning windows. I have to do 10 windows before all the windows are clean. No. Shattering matter is about, as we evolve, what piece comes up that's been a limitation that we might not even have known about before, that we're now ready to see because we've reached that frequency, that vibration. And so it comes up for us to look at it, understand it, no judgment, say, very well, it served a purpose. Why did it serve the purpose? And move forward. So Surupa asks, is meditation to understand the best way? If you have an issue, good or bad, it's not always negative. Matter that we need to shatter is often positive more than negative. And I want to emphasize that point here now. So supposing we have an issue that we need to resolve that's limiting us, even though on the surface it appears not to. Going into meditation and asking to be shown what the energy is all about can certainly help. Look at what's happening around you, because that's where the universe and spirit is giving you signs. So suppose you're attached to a position in society. It's a position that you've filled for a while, you've done a really good job, you've helped a lot of people. It's become your identity. At some point, that is going to have to stop mattering because it's a limitation. Yes, it's service. Yes, you've helped a lot of people. But if that becomes how you see yourself, then you've become one-dimensional. At some point, you have to let go of that and move on to what more there is of who you are that you can experience. So I hope that clarifies Surupa. When we see, Haresh says, when we see what matters most, what do we do with it? Well, we could shove it under the carpet and hope it'll go away, but unfortunately it very rarely does. As I said earlier, we learn why it matters. What is it about it that is trying to get and keep so much of our attention and energy? How does it limit us? Possessions often limit us. We become attached to a person or a place or, as I said, a career position. Amanda says, so for example, people around will reflect what we need to resolve. Yes, they will. It's easy to see something in someone else that we may not necessarily be able to see in ourselves. But when we attach to a place or a possession or a person as being essential to our happiness, at that point we stop growing because we're starting to live through that place, that person, that event, that label. We become encased in the concrete form that without that, whatever that might be, we can't function, we can't go forward. And I want to jump ahead here to a question that Orla said. Shattering matter feels easier to achieve when it's about material things. Yes, it does. But when we're talking about non-attachment to the people in our lives, it feels more difficult. Can you talk a little on how we can achieve this without falling into our emotions or the shoulds of our mental body? That's really good, because I think this is where often the misunderstanding is. People think that if we're going to stop allowing things to matter, that we start to become uncaring, and that's not true. What we're saying is that that person is not more important than who we are and the service we've come to fulfill. Of course our children matter. Well, I shouldn't say that, because for some people their children don't matter. On the whole, our children matter. They're important to us. We wouldn't have them if they weren't. And they sometimes can be our best teachers. However, if your children's happiness is what is mattering to you more than who you are, then you have to shatter that. And the reason you have to shatter that is because if their happiness becomes more than who you are, you're sacrificing yourself for them. And you're teaching them to do the same. Children grow healthy with boundaries, with understanding that they're wanted and they're loved and they're encouraged to grow. Not, however, that they are the center of the universe. They may be the center of your universe, my universe, but they're not the center of the universe as a whole, and they need to learn that by how you are with them. So I often talk about working with children with a dose of healthy neglect. And I know sometimes it shocks people, but it does make a difference. Okay, so how can we shatter what matters without becoming unfeeling and disconnected? I think what we need to look at here is I'm asking all of you to shatter what matters at a personality level, not what matters at a spiritual level. If your job, your partner, your house, your money, your love life, whether you're going to win lotto, is more important to you than your connection to spirit, then your connection to spirit doesn't matter enough. So I'm going to turn it around a bit. It's not a question of it's got to be one or the other, but when we're connected to spirit, and John talks about this all the time, when we allow our connection to spirit to be there, everything we do comes from our heart. And so how we interact with people matters, because spiritually we're leading the way, we're guiding them, we're helping them, but we're doing it from an open-hearted perspective. When we do it from a personality perspective, quite often we do it because we want to be recognized, we want them to like us, we want them to know how good we are, we want them to come to us and depend on us so that we won't be alone. It's a very different energy. There isn't the compassion in it when it comes from personality to the same degree as when it comes from soul. So I guess what I'm saying is it your personality stuff that matters most, or is it your soul spiritual stuff that matters most? And, that's different for each of us. And it's not right or wrong. It just is where we're all at a given point in time. So coming back to my list of questions, when there are attachments or habits, this is from Pia, when there are attachments or habits that have been around for a very long time that tend to resurface, even when you seem to have resolved them, and that's the key, even when you seem to have resolved them, what's the best way to shift past them once and for all? Don't try and shift past them once and for all. Ask why it's come up again, what is it you need to understand, and is this the final piece? And sometimes the answer may be, no, it's not. Because you may not be ready for the final piece yet. We're a work in progress. John talks about this all the time. We're a work in progress. Why should we be able to just unzip a banana and have it all ready in one go? It's a process. It's a journey. We're learning, we're growing, we're expanding as we have experiences. So let's throw away the idea of perfection and getting it right and enjoy the view. Bronwyn asks, when we shatter matter, does that mean nothing is important to us anymore? No. It means that material possessions, demands, desires, wants, don't control us. That's what John means when he talks about shattering matter. Shattering what controls us at a personality level that limits us at a spiritual level from moving forward. And she said, how do we enjoy life when we shatter matter? Well, actually, it's even better because now we're unconditional. We don't have any conditions that we have to meet before we allow ourselves to have fun and to live in joy. Makes a big difference. Do we still have preferences and desires when we shatter matter? Well, we're still human. So we might still fancy that big car or going on a flash holiday. It doesn't matter, we're human beings and we will still have preferences and desires. The difference is, do those preferences and desires control us? Or are they part of the choices that we have about how we choose to spend our time and sometimes our money? Okay. Sarupa asked, how can you be certain, confident and truly in a place of knowing? I like that, Sarupa. Certain, confident and truly in a place of knowing. So this matters. That you've shattered matter and aren't wishful hoping by not letting it matter. Shattering matter isn't something that we have to achieve by a certain age. It's not something we have to do in this lifetime if we're going to continue spiritually. It's something that happens automatically, organically, and almost ergonomically just by living our lives aspiring to be the best that we can be. It's a being, not a doing. So if you're looking for what you've got to shatter within you, it matters, which means letting go of what matters is creating a bond that matters that you've got to find a way to let go of. You go round and round in circles. It's a good question, but that's the truth of the matter, Is it when you've claimed the opposite or resolved the fear that stopped you shattering or kept you holding on to the matter in the first place? It's not about anything that's done at a mental level. When we shatter a piece, we feel differently. I can only describe how it's been for me. Each time something has been understood, integrated, and shattered, therefore, there's been a greater sense of freedom, a greater openness. And each time there's less and less judgment. I guess that's probably the biggest thing about shattering matter. The more that we find ourselves letting go of judgment, the more we know that what matters doesn't matter quite so much anymore because we don't need to judge it. Elaine says, in going through the process of realizing and releasing what matters, is there a point where it is as clear as a bell that we're done? That we have well and truly shattered, no more stuff waiting to come up? It's often called the dark night of the soul. Usually the final pieces of the soul shattering can be very, very painful, very challenging. You can feel really alone, as though you're walking your path and even though there are people around you, nobody's walking with you. I guess the best way I can describe it is you feel as though you're stripped bare of everything with which you've identified outside of self to give you a sense of self. All of that's gone. And at that point, what we see is what's left, and what's left is more than everything else we'd attached to before. What we see is the light within us, who we are and why we came. So the journey up until that point is very painful, but at that point there's such a sense of freedom, because now I don't need to conform to something that doesn't resonate. I don't need to worry about, am I going to be left alone? Will I be abandoned? Will people like me? Because suddenly I like myself, and if people like me, great, and if they don't like me, great, because somewhere, somehow, some people will. It's not important anymore. It doesn't matter. What matters is what we see of that light shining before us, highlighting what we're here to do and what we can offer. And that is so powerful in the freedom that it gives us. That was my experience. Then, of course, you've got to go to the next stage, which is where you then replace all that matters at a personality level with all that matters spiritually about who you are and what you're here to do. And there's no ego involved in that, and there's no judgment. So it's quite fascinating. I hope that clarified, Elaine. Sonia says, Amanda says, John talks about climbing the hill and then going into the valley. Yes, he does. So we climb the hill because that's us coming to terms with something that appears to matter. And we have the opportunity on the top of the hill to see really clearly what it's all about. If we resolve it when we go down the hill, we won't fall asleep in the valley. If we don't resolve it at the top of the hill, if we duck it because it's a bit too hard, so I'll just forget that for now. Then as we go down into the valley, we fall asleep. But what Amanda's asked is, what is your advice for allowing the time to integrate without falling asleep to spirit? The fact that I look at what it's showing me that I perhaps had not seen or fully understood, and what choice I want to make as a consequence, so that it's no longer an attachment, it's an integration. Amanda goes on to say, I've been contemplating the role of consciously raising my frequency. Does this play a key role in shattering matter? You can't do one without the other. If you're raising your frequency, you're shattering matter. If you're shattering matter, you're raising your frequency. The two are so intertwined. And then you become unlimited. Elaine says, what an exciting prospect to look forward to. It is. It really is. If we can let go of the addiction to what matters at a physical level and start to focus on how much more it could be spiritually, it's amazing how it changes. Orla says, on a lot of matter shattered automatically when I became a parent. Things that used to matter to me. Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to get the rest of this. I can't get the see more to come up. Uh-oh. No, it won't let me see the end of it, Orla. I'm sorry. I presume what you're saying is a lot of what used to matter didn't matter anymore. Equally, however, once we become a parent, a whole host of things that we never even thought about before we became a parent suddenly become important and matter. So in some ways we exchange one pile of baggage for another pile of baggage, all of which is based around what people tell us we should, could, must do, ought, etc. So Sonia says, in his talk, John said, if we don't implement or take steps to do things differently, aligned to what we have learned, we then fall back into our habitual state of being. Why do we do that? Why do we happily go back to sleep? It's easier. It's that simple. It's easier. You know, when we understand something that's limited us, good or bad, and a lot of the good stuff limits us. I can't do this because my mom won't like it, or I better not do that because my partner might not approve. The relationship's good, but we start to put conditions around it. And so sometimes changing those conditions is hard. It's easier to say, I'll do it next time. Or I'll just do this bit and I'll just do it slowly over a period of time. Different people do it different ways and it takes different amounts of time. Sometimes it takes lifetimes. Is patience very important in relation to shattering matter? Absolutely. John asks us to let it go and take the step, as it's important to take them and wait for the energy to return. However, sometimes it feels the energy never returns, or is it another illusion that energy will always return, maybe just not the way we expect? When we let go, what he talks about is, if we're guided to do something, we start to do it. If we start to attach to, are we doing it right? Have we meditated enough? Do we need to push this to make this work, or put a lot more effort there? Then at that point, we're getting in our own way. All we need to do when we're guided to do something is to start to do it. And if it's not flowing, then step back and ask, have we understood what we've been asked to do? And if we really feel we have, then we say to our guides and our teachers, what else do I need to see, to understand here? So that we can look at why it's not shifting. And sometimes we need to start the energy with our intent, and that energy needs to go out into the world and begin to gather momentum before we can actually take the steps that bring back the return. So patience is really important. The energy will always come back to us, but it doesn't always come back in the way that we expect. we anticipate, or most importantly, the way we think it should. If when you step forward to do something and you put that energy out there, you don't feel there's a return of that energy, then ask, sit in meditation and ask, has it come back? Am I missing something? You'll soon find out, because your guides and your teachers will tell you. Amanda says, I really have found the idea of step by step is very helpful. It is, it's the only way. It's not about the destination. The spiritual path is not about the destination. It never has been, it never will be. It's about the journey. Excuse me. It's about the journey, and it's about how we make that journey, the energy that we share with other people as we move forward through life. If it matters to us to be open-hearted and loving to all those we encounter on our path, that's a spiritual matter. It's not a personality matter. If it matters to us to be open-hearted and loving to all those we meet on our path so they'll see how spiritual we are, that's a personality matter, not a spiritual matter. So I hope that tonight's talks helped clarify a few things. I don't know if anybody's got any other questions. We've gone quite a while on this one, which is great. Next month, what I'd like to do is throw it open. Any questions on any of John's talks this year that anybody has a question about, throw it at me at next month's Facebook Live, and hopefully I'll have something that will help you to resolve whatever it is or understand it a little bit more. If not, and if there are no more questions, then I hope tonight's shattering matter has clarified things a little bit, and I'll see you in a month's time on Facebook. Until then, pop a comment in the box and let me know how you enjoyed it and if you got any value from it. Thanks very much. Good night.